I would also like to join the others in expressing my appreciations to the organizers and the co-sponsors, the missions of Australia, the United States, and the European Union. I'm particularly thankful to the principal organizer, the Japanese government, Minister Suga, Ambassador Besho, and all those who's been involved in not only raising this issue of abduction, but trying to find a solution to a problem that has lasted over 4 decades now. I think everyone here will join me in expressing how moved we were of the testimonials given by the family members of the victims. I would like to express my deep sympathy, and I really sincerely hope that our small effort can eventually lead to a breakthrough in the impasse. But that will take a great deal of resolve, not only with the family members and the like-minded people, but certainly, we are here at this venue, the United Nations. We have many UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea, but they're all for WMDs, the nuclear tests. We don't have the Security Council resolution on North Korea and human rights. I think that's the kind of resolve by the international community, particularly the United Nations and the Security Council, that will eventually see to a happy ending to the kind of problem that we're faced with today. That said, I cannot personally hide my disappointment with the recent trend on the political developments over the North Korean human rights issues, including the abduction issue. The human rights issues has taken a backseat to a couple of major political developments. The first political development, of course, is the diplomatic summits. All of a sudden, in the past 2 years, Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, is at the center stage of international news, meeting dignitaries, meeting President Trump, meeting President Moon Jae-in, meeting Xi Jinping, so on and so forth, all in the name of denuclearization. That hasn't helped the human rights cause. The second political development that has served as an obstacle to finding a resolution on the human rights issues is the initiative for some sort of a peaceful ending or peace initiatives, peace mood on the Korean Peninsula. And this has led to a situation where the human rights issues have really been de-emphasized. So the diplomatic summits in the name of denuclearization and the peace mood on the Korean Peninsula have unfortunately led to a situation where the human rights issues have been swept under the carpet, if you will. It's left the human rights component completely in a limbo. I would like to say, for the record, that probably with absolute certainty, without an improvement, a genuine improvement in human rights condition, there's never ever going to be a real peace on the Korean Peninsula. In that light, I think how we approach and deal with North Korea is, in terms of its strategic approach, is grossly miscalculated. Instead of shunning human rights in the name of all these other political objectives, I think human rights is the issue that the international community should be really focusing on, including the abduction issue. Why? It's because if there is one thing that North Korea is extremely sensitive about, it is about the international community's image of its human rights condition. It's quite different from its WMDs. We see time and again North Korea, despite the international community's desire to denuclearize North Korea flaunts its nuclear capability. We've had numerous missile launches and nuclear tests, and it is not afraid to show the world what it has. With human rights issue, it's a completely different story. It's just the opposite. North Korea wants to hide its human rights conditions. It doesn't want the world to know exactly what is happening in North Korea. Case in point, back in 2014, we've had the Commission of Inquiry report, and a lot of the aspects that was in the COI report was about to be reflected in the General Assembly resolution. And all of a sudden, North Korea comes forward to invite Marzuki Daruzman, who is, of course, at that time the special rapporteur for North Korean human rights. They never invited him before, but they were inviting him to Pyongyang in the hopes that perhaps some of the aspects of the COI might not be translated into a UN General Assembly resolution. All of a sudden, North Korea voluntarily releases Jeffrey Fowl, Matthew Todd Miller, and Kenneth Bae. That was a huge surprise. Why? Because the human rights issue is sort of like an Achilles gun of North Korea. Another case in point, right now in Geneva, of course, we have the UPR going on. To the charges of human rights violation, what is North Korea saying? North Korea officially is saying that there's no violations of human rights. They have freedom of speech, they have freedom of religion, freedom of information. There are no political prison camps. If anything, and this is from the North Korean ambassador to Geneva, he's saying that various sanctions on North Korea is actually hampering North Korea's efforts to protect and promote human rights, which is quite ridiculous. But I think, it just goes to show that North Korea is extremely sensitive about the international community watching over North Korea's human rights condition. And yet, we have been kind of shunning these issues in favor of a lot of other political aspects. And therefore, I think the real strategy in dealing with North Korea, particularly if we really wanted to genuinely resolve issues like abduction, is to really focus on human rights issues. North Korea wants to cover up human rights issues. This is precisely why we have to focus on these issues and educate North Korea that if you want better image, if you want the international community to have a better image of North Korea, that it has, word is cheap, that it has to do something, that it has to take some actions in the human rights front. And it has to start somewhere. And I think this is where the abduction issue can play a very big role, particularly the Japanese abduction issue. Because when it comes to the Japanese abduction issue, I think the hardest part has already been done, which is that in 2002, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, has already admitted to the abduction. Of course, the numbers are different. He had admitted to 13. So this is a follow-up to the admission that they have already done. So I think it falls on all of us to educate and press North Korea to follow up on this issue. After all, when it comes to North Korea may be thinking that, then we might be accused of having lied again. Well, you have to think, how much worse can its credibility get? I don't think its reputation can get any worse than where it is. That said, the upside can be quite high for North Korea if it actually made some moves to improve, to make some progress on this issue. It could actually lead to an improvement of relations with Japan, the Japanese government, and it could have a spillover effect into other human rights issues, meaning other abduction cases with Americans, with Thai, and certainly the moderator mentioned about Korea. I mean, we have over 500 abducted cases, and that's only after the Korean War, almost 10,000 if you're including the Korean War period. So in a way, I believe that the Japanese abduction case can serve as a litmus test of North Korea gaining minimum level of credibility and possibly worthiness to receive some sort of assistance from the outside world. And I think this is the point that has to be emphasized to convince North Korea and educate North Korea to make progress on this abduction issue. And it can begin, I believe, with the resolution on this abduction case. Thank you.